Hello, welcome to Weather or Not. We've got a great show lined up for you today, as we have many exciting nature in the news stories, including Antarctica's ice and where Earth's water came from. Additionally, we'll also have your winter outlook and recap of the weather that's impacted the area so far this year. Thank you for joining us this holiday weekend. We hope you and your family have had a great Thanksgiving and are having a great holiday weekend. I am Brian Mastro.
And I'm Michael Prianti.
Now, Michael, I understand you have your winter outlook for tonight.
I'm going to be releasing our winter outlook for winter 2016, so stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. And I hear that you have a weather recap for the year. Is that so?
We're going to be taking a look at the year we've had in weather this year here in State College, all the way from the record cold we had in February to those 90-degree days in September. But for now, we have nature in the news.
The thick green algae that formed a layer of film over the western half of Lake Erie this summer was the most severe algae bloom on record, according to federal scientists. The outbreak was measured to be more than in 2014, which left Toledo's drinking water polluted and forced the 3-day closing of the city's water treatment system. This summer's bloom forced the closing down of multiple private beaches as well as affected the fishing markets in the area. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency estimates that the bloom is responsible for $64 million in losses per year due to the cost of drinking water treatment, loss of recreational water use, and the negative effect the bloom has on the value of waterfront properties. Prior to the summer's unusual weather, a large but less significant amount of algae was expected. However, after the heavy rains in June, the forecast changed and a severe bloom was predicted to come. What followed was a heavy nutrient runoff in July, leading to a bloom that hit its max in August. In September, 2 major cold fronts brought heavy winds and disrupted and weakened the bloom growth, allowing for a much faster decline compared to most years, which can last into October.
The most active time of the year for tornadoes usually occur between the months of March and October. The National Weather Service will issue watches and warnings in order to save lives and property. Knowing the difference between them can help individuals take proper life-saving precautions. A watch is issued by the Weather Service if conditions are favorable for development for tornadoes close to the specified watch area. Watches that are issued by the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, are issued well in advance of the severe weather. Watches have more variation with them as there is no set criteria for them and can be adjusted as severe weather conditions change. A warning, however, does have specific criteria that has to be met. For example, a severe thunderstorm warning includes hail that totals more than 1 inch in diameter and wind speeds of 55 miles per hour. For a tornado, a warning indicates a tornado is either occurring or is imminent. When a warning is issued, individuals should take the proper life-saving steps by seeking interior shelter.
The majority of Earth is covered by water, but where did it come from? Scientists believe that ancient dust may be the answer. When the Earth formed around 4 billion years ago, it was the result of countless collisions with dust and rocks surrounding the sun. Planetary scientists at the University of Hawaii are questioning whether some of the ancient minerals in Earth's mantle held the first water molecules. An undisturbed source of mantle from the Earth's formation was needed to perform the research. Lava samples from 1985 extracted from Baffin Island in Canadian Arctic and Iceland provided just that. Because the surface of the Earth has changed dramatically over its lifespan, the lava provides a better sample because it came from the Earth's mantle, which has remained unchanged. These samples are some of the most primitive rocks ever found on Earth's surface, and the water they contain gives an invaluable insight into Earth's early history and where its water came from. After the rocks were tested, researchers discovered Earth's water was accumulated during the planet's formation rather than being added later by impacting water-rich material such as comets or asteroids.
Last week, a blizzard buried parts of Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas. which led to dangerous travel conditions. The winter storm brought snowfall rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour at times, as well as 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. This greatly hindered travel along portions of Interstates 70 and 80. Most of the snowfall greatly impacted the travel along these routes into Tuesday evening. The main concern was that the wind was powerful enough to knock down trees, leading to power outages. Some local areas in eastern Colorado received around 3 to 6 inches worth of snow. After the storm, temperatures have rebounded, and the snow has started to melt in the lower elevations.
According to a recently released study by NASA, Antarctica is continuing to see ice growth despite concerns for gradual ice loss over the past couple of years. This year, NASA has confirmed that the ice extent has reached a new record maximum. Antarctica is roughly the size of the United States and Mexico combined, so ice gains and losses happen on a yearly basis. But what makes this more intriguing for scientists is the fact that the western ice sheet is slowly losing ice and is considered unstable. They fear that it will collapse in the coming years, leading to significant ice loss and a potential rise in sea level.
A storm wreaked havoc across Washington state last week, packing heavy rainfall, strong winds, and even created a dust storm, reducing visibilities to near zero across the state. Wind gusts as high as 137 miles per hour were recorded in some higher elevations. This wind brought down trees, roofs, and power lines across the state, leaving more than 300,000 people without power across Washington. The high winds made it dangerous just to be outside, and many schools, including Gonzaga University, had to close down due to dangerous conditions. Sadly, 3 people were caught outside and were killed during the storm due to high winds and flash flooding. Remember, you make sure always to check the weather and heed warnings from the National Weather Service in order to stay safe during any severe weather event.
The only known wild orangutans in the world are being threatened throughout the jungles of Indonesia by raging wildfires. Typically, fires erupt in these forests every year during the dry season as farmers and plantation owners use controlled burns to clear out land for farm use. However, this year has been exceptionally dry, which has caused catastrophic results for the region. Over 50,000 orangutans live within the islands of Borneo and Sumatra, and many wildlife officials are scrambling to save them. Teams of firefighters have been deployed throughout the jungles, aiming to stop new fires from spreading. They're even implementing the use of technology such as drones, which are being deployed to get a bird's eye view of the wildfires.
The United Kingdom Meteorological Office, in conjunction with Met Irian, the Irish Meteorological Office, have begun naming storms this year that impact the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. They have decided to name storms that have the potential to cause damage in the area. Rather than specify tropical, winter, or windstorms, the storms would just be referred to as storm, followed by their name, such as Storm Barney, which hit Ireland and the UK last week, packing winds of over 80 miles per hour and bringing heavy rain and some storm surge to the coast. The UK office has said to prevent any confusion, if the U.S. National Weather Service names a storm, the UK will keep the original name, like the remnants of Hurricane Kate a few weeks ago that impacted the area. Also, like the U.S. National Weather Service, the letters Q, U, X, Y, and Z will not have names assigned to them to maintain consistency across the Atlantic. Hello, I'm Brian Master. We're going to take a look at the weather recap for the weather that has impacted central Pennsylvania in the year 2015. During the month of February, we had a record cold outbreak. We had a low temperature of all the way down to negative 11 degrees on February 16th. And throughout the month of February, we had 6 days below zero low temperatures. And it was the coldest February on record here in State College, with the average temperature only coming in at 17.1 degrees, over 12 degrees below our average. And we actually still had this wind chill graphic lying around from that day of February 16th when we went all the way down to negative 11. We had wind chills all the way down to negative 35 degrees, which can cause frostbite to exposed skin in 15 minutes. And then going into the month of March, the winter weather continued, and we actually had Penn State close for the first time in 8 years due to winter weather. There was a major ice storm overnight, March 3rd into March 4th, dropping over a quarter-inch of ice here in State College, making the roads and sidewalks completely impassable, as we can see in this picture right here of one of the sidewalks here on campus. It was a solid sheet of ice, and just because of how cold the ground was, none of it melted, forcing the university to close because roads such as this were impossible to be able to travel safely on to get to campus. Also, going into the month of April, we had a tornado just 10 miles away from State College, just off to our east. It was an EF0. It was only on the ground for a mile, but still, tornadoes can and do happen here in central Pennsylvania. And this was an absolute beast of a storm, this impressive supercell structure with the hook echo and anything, and these high values right here showing hail, which was about quarter-sized hail. Some of it did melt by the time this picture was taken, but it was an incredible storm. It turned Atherton Street into a lake, making it impassable to drive over safely, but some people still tried. And then coming into the fall, things have died down. However, we did have 5 straight home games, 3 of which included rain, featuring heavy rain at the Buffalo game, the chance for some thunderstorms even at the Rutgers game, and then even some rain against the Army team as well.
Well, I'm Michael Prianta here with your winter weather outlook, and here at Weather or Not, we've done the research and we looked at the forecast, and we believe that this is going to be a really good winter in terms of precipitation and temperatures. So we jump right on in with the temperature outlook, and the story here is we have below average temperatures expected for the southern portion of the United States as we head farther north, where we have those areas that don't have any color. That's where we can expect more normal temperatures for this time of the year. And then progressing even farther north and west in the country, we have those orange tinges, which mean above average, slightly above average to well above average temperatures, especially in portions of northern Michigan and northwestern Oregon. We zoom on into our area, though, notice we are in that slightly orange color, which means that we will be experiencing slightly above average temperatures for this time of the year. And although that means that we'll have slightly above averages averaged in, that doesn't mean every single day will be above average. We will have days that'll feel really, really cold, and it will feel like winter. So don't take this as a welcome sign for the winter. Going with the precipitation outlook, again, the same story. We have that wet precipitation down in the south due to that El Nino. Especially in Florida, we have those darker blues. Going farther north, we have equal chances of below or above average precipitation. And then farther north and northwest into northwestern Pacific, we can expect drier conditions in terms of precipitation this time of the year. But the more important part is here in State College. Now you zoom on in, we're right on the borderline of the above average precipitation and the below average precipitation. So what that means is equal chances for us. So we can expect either slightly below or slightly above average precipitation. And we average about 46 inches of snow this year. So it appears that this winter won't be too bad in terms of temperatures, and about precipitation, it looks like it's going to be about average.
Thank you for that, Michael. It is good to see that this winter will not be as cold as it was here last winter. But now, earlier in the show, we asked you our Weather Whiz quiz. What is the total normal average snowfall for November here in State College? Is it A, 2.3 inches, B, 1.4 inches, C, 3.4 inches, or D, 2.6 inches? If you guessed A, 2.3 inches, you're right. Now, Michael, we haven't had anywhere near that amount of snow here this November, as we've only had about a trace of snow. But what are we looking at for the rest of the winter?
Well, yeah, you're right, Brian. Like I mentioned earlier in my winter outlook, this winter doesn't seem like it's going to be much warmer than the previous winters, as we're going to have brief periods of colder temperatures invade central Pennsylvania, but then you're going to have days that'll be slightly above average in terms of temperatures. So that's going to equal out the winter temperature outlook. So it doesn't seem like we're going to be much more above average in terms of temperature. But precipitation-wise, it looks like equal chances. So we average about 46 inches of snow here in State College. So I think that we'll get around average for this time of the year.
Well, it's good to hear that it won't be too bad. That's all we have for you today. Thank you for joining us this holiday weekend. We hope you have a great rest of your Thanksgiving weekend. I am Brian Mastro.
And I'm Michael Prianti. Have a great day.